Hello. So first of all, I'm doing the producing, right? Which means that everything can go wrong and things will go wrong. So the first thing we want some acknowledgement from the viewers. Can you hear us all? Can we talk all together for a second? So if you can hear me, Jonas, Ellie, the audio is bad. That's what we are getting. The audio is bad. Okay, no sound. Okay. I'm getting feedback in the feedback view. Okay, this is odd. Let's try a few. We can't hear Jonas. No sound. At all? No, Jonas. Okay. Okay, we can hear Noseman, but all the others are muffled. So, active speaker from Skype. Let's go and add the... Sorry, everyone. It's totally my fault. Okay. Active speaker and turn active speaker on. Jonas, can you speak?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear Jonas? He just said something. Okay, we don't have... You will have to give us a few seconds because we're trying a new setup, which was my very, very bad idea. And we need to figure out why it's not coming through. I may need to add one by one. I'm going to do the following thing. I'm going to turn this on. So, Jonas, can you speak now?
Yes, I can. How's everyone doing? Can you hear me now?
All right, it takes a few seconds for us to read your comments, so please, we're going to make it up. Mute, you can't hear Jonas?
I think all the audio is coming through, everybody. Hashi in the background here. What's up, everyone?
Hello.
So all of it is coming through?
Better, we get better. I'm going to turn on Ellie, Darren. Now, everyone should be audible. It's extremely quiet. Oh, yes, yes.
We're getting a few yeses coming through.
Oh, a lot
Okay,
of yeses.
that means
I'm hoping we're good.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Darren, sing us a song, please.
Oh my gosh, dude, I can't possibly sing a song right
That's
now.
a great lyric. Just stick to
I
it.
can't.
Ellie, can you say something?
I can be the backing singer for you, Darren, if you like. I don't mind.
99 bottles.
So, please in the comments, was there anyone that wasn't audible? Jonas and Ellie, no sound still.
Jonas is
someone
getting no
heard-
sound.
Or no sound. Huh.
Yeah, we just need to make sure. Yes, yep.
Yep.
All right. Anyone that cannot hear, all have sound now. Let's go. Okay, all have sound now. Let's go. When we
Great.
change, good. When we change the scenes, I'm gonna have to do some quick adjustments and get things.
Yeah, you can do
Confirmation
that
from
in the
Michelle.
meantime.
That
So let's start with my block of housekeeping and then with the introduction to rigging fundamentals. Cool. So can you please bring up the scene that shows my screen? Noseman?
Oh, this is me and Jonas. Hi, everyone. So, Jonas' screen. There we go.
However, if you're new to Ask the Trainer, this is, well, we are going to change this format slightly. You can still write us your questions, and we try our best to answer them in one of the follow-up sessions or in the current one. The other thing is that we are theming our sessions now. So today we're going to talk about rigging fundamentals. But before we go into that, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing. So we're doing quite a lot of events. If you go to the Maxon website and then news events, you come to this very site where you can see all of the upcoming events that we have. Like this is today's Ask the Trainer session. On Friday, we have another VFX and Chill session with Hashi and Seth. And then we are also having a demystifying post-production webinar series running each Monday. And the topic of this month is essential motion graphics. And we also have hands-on with Maxon Redshift workshop with Ellie on Wednesday, and Maxon Color on pretty much every Thursday when we're not doing Ask the Trainer. So that's the events that we have. Whenever you missed to watch one of these, you can always go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, where you can rewatch all of these webinars that we are doing. Cool. So another thing I want to share is that we have a certification test or multiple certification tests going on, and you can go to them. If you go to the Maxon website, learn and then certification, you come to this site, and there are a few tests that you can take for free, like multiple choice tests and so on, also in multiple languages. And then there is this C4D Basics Comprehensive Certification Test, which is pretty much a certification for pro users. And we also have a certification topics list. And this is what we are going to take as the foundation for our next Ask the Trainer sessions. So we are going to pick a topic, and we're going to discuss it a little bit more in depth. In case you're interested in becoming certified, so that Ask the Trainer is going to be a great source of getting all of that knowledge that you need to have if you want to become a certified user. All right, and then we want to give away free t-shirts as well. And you need to go to the link that Ellie is going to post in the chat, and if you type in the certification code, it's our promo code for these that you have to type in. If you type that in, then you get a discount of 100% on the t-shirts. So you don't have to pay for the t-shirts, only for the shipping. Great. So I think that was everything housekeeping. Now let's start with the actual topic. And today's topic is rigging fundamentals. And the first thing I want to discuss here is, what is rigging? Well, that's pretty easy to explain. Rigging is the process of making something that is difficult easy to use. So that's pretty much it. And there are many things that you can do with rigging. And to show you that, I have a little scene here, so let me fold this away. So most of the people think of this when they hear about rigging. So here we have a character that has been rigged. We can grab these controllers here, we can move them around and so on, and do pretty awesome stuff. So what I'm playing with right now is a scene from the asset browser created by Everfresh. This is the Toon rig that Sebastian was using here. But also people are thinking about stuff like this. Here we have a face rig where you have a few controllers and you can control various things here. And as you can see, all of these creases are coming in and so on. And well, this is rigging, like creating an interface for something more complicated. But the thing about rigging is that many people think it's all about character rigging, but that's actually not the case. So in this scene, I just created, a little rig that is showing that rigging is not pure character rigging. So rigging is a really wide topic, and character rigging is, just a portion of it, like a really important one and a very challenging one, but it is just a portion. Because rigging is making something difficult, easy to use. And this can be done with anything. It can be camera rigs. It can be much more. Like, for example, here, that's also from the asset browser, where I created a little rig for train tracks. And what you can do here, for example, is you can adjust a spline, and the whole rail track will follow that spline. And there are even more options here. I created an interface, and you can adjust the type of fastening, for example. You can enable or disable the rocks and adjust their seat and the level and so on. Then you can also rig something like buildings. It will come up in a second. Here we go. So let's have a look at this small house. And here I rigged it in a way that you can totally adjust the size of the house, and everything will work. And this is actually nothing for animation. It's just a rig for setting up stuff. And then here's another rig that is not character related. It's actually a MoGraph rig for a scissor lift, something like that. And this is also a rig because it's making this whole stuff that is underneath the controller very easy to use. And it's even very flexible, so you can adjust the count of these elements, and it will still work. So all of this is rigging. And this brings me to a topic, what riggers need to know, because a rigger is not just someone who has a lot of technical expertise. No, a rigger needs to know many things. For example, artistic things, which also include what is the person, the artist doing with it, like the animator or the guy who is going to create something based on that rig. So the rigger needs to know the process that comes after the rigging process. Then, of course, there needs to be a lot of technical understanding, like all of these expressions that we have inside of Cinema 4D or any other 3D software need to be known, and maybe even some of programming, like Python programming and so on. But also, a rigger needs to be an interface designer. So there needs to be a knowledge of user experience, of creating interfaces, and so on. So a rigger is an animator, a programmer, an interface designer, and all of these things. So what defines a good rig? It's actually two things. So let's talk about the person that is using the rig. I call that person animator for now. Of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be an animator, but for now, for the ease of use, I'm going to call this person an animator. The animator needs maximum control over the thing that he or she wants to animate. And in addition to that, all of the processes that can be automated need to be automated. So there are a lot of things an animator doesn't want to be aware of, or that the animator wants to touch, and those things need to be automated. That's what a good rig is: maximum control and automation. All right, so that's the intro, and the next thing I'm going to show you is another little scene that I created where we already have a little rig in there. It's this little gear, and once I rotate this, the other gear will also rotate, and then there is this element here that is moving accordingly. So it seems to be very easy, but what I want to talk about here are execution orders and priorities. So if you rig stuff, or when you rig stuff, you need to be aware of the ordering of the expressions. So you need to know when exactly on a frame an expression will be executed. And the first thing I want to explain is that the execution order in Cinema 4D is from top to bottom in the object manager. But it's not just as easy as that. So if once you have multiple objects on the same hierarchical level, it's top to bottom. But also, it's from the very lowest point in the hierarchy up. So first, the cogwheel will be executed, then this generator will be executed to create the geometry out of the cogwheel spline, then this null will be executed, and then this null. All right, so, and then we have tags. Tags will be executed from the left to the right. And the easiest way to show that is by just moving this material up here, and suddenly you can see that this gear is now red because the red material is on the right. If I swap the two, you can see that it's now the green material that is active, so to speak. And it's the same with expressions. So as soon as you have multiple expressions on one object, you need to be aware of the execution order, which is from left to right. Okay. Sounds easy, but sometimes there are a few issues that you need to tackle and you need to resolve in order to make a rig work. Like, for example, the easiest way, to find out if a rig is working and if the execution orders are set up correctly is if you just change something, like rotating this gear, and then you undo, and then you will see if everything is correct. Right now, it is correct because everything snapped into place correctly. But now let's do something different. Let me just swap these two. And now what happens is that although I'm rotating this gear icon, the first thing that will be executed is the second gear, and then this one. Well, it's not this. Well, first of all, this guy here will be executed. You can see that here. It's this double target thing. And then the first one, the first gear, and then the second gear will be executed. That's the ordering now. We can even make that more, well, not working if we swap these two. So now you can see if I move that fast, well, you cannot see it too much, but it's a little bit lagging. And you see that even more if I now hit undo, then you can see that this guy is still into place. And now if I click somewhere, you can see that it's snapped back. And this is an indication for the execution order not being set up correctly. However, there is a reason. There is a way to still set up the execution order correctly, although the ordering here in the object manager is not from top to bottom. And this is by using the priority parameter. If you select one of these expressions and go to the basic tab, you see this priority parameter. And basically what this is doing is it's shifting the time of execution of an expression like to an earlier time or a later time within one frame. So first of all, we have 5 categories here, which will be executed one after the other. First of all, there is the initial category, or let me talk about them as time zones. The first time zone is initial. After that, there is the animation time zone. So animation will always be executed after initial. Then expressions will be executed, always after animation and initial. Then dynamics will be executed, and last but not least, generators. Okay, so we have these 5 categories, these 5 time zones. Within each of the time zones, we have this little parameter, which can be set to any value between -499 and +499. And if you go negative, that means that something is will be executed earlier in the frame, and if you go positive, it will be executed later in the frame. So let me enable something here. Let's make this thing visible that I also rigged up so that it's linked to the actual priorities. Cool. So as long as all of the priorities, and you can see that here, if you watch the priority value, all of them are set to 0, then as long as they are on the same value, they will be executed from top to bottom here. If you change that value, you can break that flow. So for example, I can tell this setup that the big gear, that this expression of the big gear should be executed first. Of course, we first need to execute this one and then this one. So what I do is I switch the priority so that the priority is, let's say, -5 or something. -1 would also be enough, but I tend to leave gaps between the priorities so that I can set up something that is in the middle. So I usually go in steps of 10. And then we need that constraint here, which is, first of all, constraining this part to that cogwheel and also making it aim to this point. And this needs to be executed in the middle. And after that, we want to execute this one, which should be pointing to this point. So let's bring this to a later point in time. And now, if I rotate this object here, you can see that everything is working. And even if I go back here, everything is in place and there is no lag. So here you can clearly see that first of all, the Xpresso tag will be executed, then the constraint tag, and then the target tag, although I completely messed up the ordering here in the object manager. So priorities are something you need to be aware of, especially if you are rigging more complicated stuff like characters and so on. But even in a small setup like this one, setting up the priorities correctly can be relevant. All right. Now you already learned about the rigging fundamentals and also at which time an expression will be executed inside of Cinema 4D. Now let's jump over to Thanasis, and he's going to show you a few more technical setups.
I need to press my production buttons here, right? I just have to switch from producer to trainer. Good. And now let me switch to my screen. Right, I'm doing producing now. Okay, 1, 2 clicks. There you go. Everyone should be able to see my screen here. And
Yes.
I'm not going to show you this yet. I'm looking at my notes. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm such a single process human being. I can't deal with more than one things at a time. Okay, first of all, I just posted a link to a fantastic video from Kai Pedersen talking about constraints and priorities and all that. He gives it's an old tutorial, but most of the concepts he deals with are still relevant. And I'm gonna link one more tutorial by the amazing Brett Days, where he's using simple deformers and simple hierarchies to create character animation without any joints and all that. And having said that, let me just talk about some very simple rigs. So what we're going to see here is one of the simplest forms. I have an airplane, and I just want this airplane to move along a helix, a line. Okay, so this is essentially a very simple rig, because we're using one value, the position value, to change the position and rotation of an object based on a requirement. And this requirement is that the airplane always points in the forward direction it's moving, and it's always tangential to the spline itself. Now, everyone knows how to do an align to spline. That's fairly simple. What I've done here, if you pay attention, I haven't put the align to spline on the airplane. I've put it on a null, and I've put the airplane underneath that null. And the reason for that is that because the component of the rig that's doing the automated work is the null itself, the airplane can be independently moved around. So as it flies around, we can add other controls to the airplane if we wish to do things, let's say some banking and stuff like that. So let me zero out all these values here. If I wanted this airplane to bank a bit more, the only thing I had to do was go and change its banking rotation, because heading, pitch and banking are very similar to how an airplane works. So I can just tilt it to the side. Now it has a normal tilt, and I can go and add a bit of variation in the way it's banking to make it look more realistic. So we took an otherwise a very simple rig, and by adding one more component, a null, we have disassociated the airplane from the component that's moving it around. So this is how you essentially construct rigs and make them more complex, by making sure that you have more control over more parameters without restraining other things. So this was just an example of using a simple hierarchy to disassociate the airplane's banking or pitch rotation from the actual very much constrained tangential position of the airplane. So you take a simple rig and you make it a bit more powerful by adding one level of complexity. So let me show you something a bit more, let's say, advanced, which you're going to see more of this in Brett Bay's tutorial. So,
Hey, now, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
Can you
please.
repost the link to those tutorials that you shared earlier, because they actually didn't appear in the chat?
They didn't appear in the chat.
Then we fixed it, so now when you post it, they will appear. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. So let me take quickly, this is the constraints, boom, and this is Brett Bay's fantastic using deformers to create character animation. He has a little word, there we go. And YouTube just gave me a message about moderators, and I said close. That's my general advice. When you get a pop-up, you just close it. Never read things. It's more fun that way. So let's continue. What I've done here, oops, this is a notification that we have a meeting. So what I've done here is I have a cube with a bend deformer, a very simple setup, and what I'm controlling here, what I want to do is I want to be able to use one object to bend, and I want to use another object to rotate that bend. And you will see the analysis of this in Brett Bay's tutorial. But although we know that we can go to a bend deformer and control the strength or the angle to do that motion, what you can do with a very simple Xpresso tag is use two objects, and let me move this right here in the middle so we can see everything. You can use two objects, the base, for example, rotate, which has a protection tag, so I can't rotate it in any other direction, only on its H rotation band. And I'm just feeding that variable in the so this is the base, there you go, the base rotate. I'm feeding that value in the angle of this, and because they're both angles, you don't even need to change any of the parameters. And the same thing I'm doing, I'm driving the strength over here using the rotation of this object over here. So this is another form of rig where, although it's fairly simple to just go and change some parameters to create a given effect, this is essentially the creation of some sort of interface where you don't need to go to the attributes. You can work directly here and change either the full rotation or just the rotation of the amount of bending, or the direction by which it's bending. In which direction is it bending. And you can see the cube itself is not rotating, it's just the bend that's rotating. So another very simple example how a combination of a hierarchy and an Xpresso tag, which allows you to feed certain values from one object into something else, the bender form in this case with these two values here, you can create an interactive rig that does something. And you still have all the other controls. You can make it shorter, you can still keep changing the amount of bend over here and rotate the base and so forth. Now there are some hidden secrets which a lot of people don't tackle with. I'm not going to talk too much about it. There is something called the interaction tag, and I think I haven't used it for a long time. It's this one here, the interaction tag, and this is an ever so powerful tool for the people that are already quite good with rigging and understanding Xpresso and all that. It allows you to do all sorts of things when you select an object. It can change tool, it can do all sorts of things. So I would suggest Search University. I'm pretty sure there are tutorials which I'm not aware right at the moment off the top of my head, but look into the interactive tag, which will give you a lot of information about how to do more advanced rigs. Now let me show you. Okay, I'm going to show this, and then I'm going to hand it over to Jonas once more, and I'm going to show you a small example of a rig that utilizes inverse kinematics, and I've made it nice and colorful here with nice little icons just to confuse you ever so slightly more. And basically how this works is I just move one or the other. I've got two nulls which I can move, and I can create whatever scissors rig I want. And by multiplying this hierarchy and changing a couple of links, you can add to it. Now it's not very procedural, but I'd like to show you the concept on how something like this is made. So here's the very simple part. I'm going to remove the cubes. It's very much based on a simple hierarchy. Now, forget the root. I only put a root up there because if I want to move everything, I can just move it around, and I use it as more as a grouping system. And generally, the cubes themselves are only here for you to visualize that cross over here. And this is the other cube. The cubes have no structural, they play no structural role in this particular rig. And again, the only thing they do is just visualize that relationship between the X. So I can sort of turn them off for now. And the simplicity of this rig comes from the following thing. I've applied it to this. Let me delete the cubes for now. There you go. And this null here and this null here are just children of these two. They don't participate in the hierarchy itself, so I can delete these as well. What you're seeing here is the essential components of the hierarchy. It's a null here on top. It's the place where this is going to pivot, and the bottom null. So I've created this triangular relationship, and I think this is so this is the parent, this is the middle, and this is the end. And what I'm going to do with this, what I have done with this, is I've added an IK tag. So let me delete the IK tag and delete the goal, and this would be the hierarchy that I started with. And I'm going to say, let's go and add an IK rigging tag. And I'm going to say very few words about IK. I added it to everything, so let me get rid of those. So you go to the beginning of your hierarchy. Because currently the only relationship that these have is that the parent moves everything, this moves its children, and this moves by itself. So that there's no other relationship with these two. But I'm going to create a relationship using this IK tag. So first of all, the object it's applied is considered to be the beginning. And down here in the attributes, at the end, it's asking us, what is the end of this, let's say, chain of objects? And it's the last object down here. So there you go. And immediately it draws this green line from the beginning to the end. It can be deep in the hierarchy. It doesn't matter. You don't need 3. You can make this with 3,000 objects. And the last thing I want to do here is I want to dictate, I want to create a null which is going to be exactly where the end is, but it's going to be a controller for us. This is a convenience. We can do this without that, but if you add a goal, you get this interesting little null here, which is called goal. From this point onwards, when I move this goal here, it's going to create the appropriate rotations for these nulls so that their distances are always going to be retained. So we are calculating the rotations based on the final position of the end of the hierarchy. That's why it's called inverse kinematics. Whereas when you're doing a forward kinematic setup, it's that the rotation defines the final position of the children. Because the translation goes forward. If you take this and rotate it, everything else is moved in space by calculating their positions in a forward direction, down the hierarchy. But when you're using an inverse kinematic setup, the rotations are calculated based on the end goal, and that's why it's called inverse. It goes backwards to find exactly the place. Now, if I go and add back those little cubes here, you will realize, I'm just going to reset these and make this shorter, and so we have this cube here. I'm just going to rotate it like that and move it down. There we go, fantastic. I'm going to take this cube, make a copy, put it here, reset, and let's negate this, minus 45 or something like that. I'm not even really bothered about this, just to create this cross section. Now, these don't participate in the whole IK thing. The IK thing is it's the business of the parents, right? These are children. Children have no business in their parents' affairs. But you will see how this looks now. It looks like it's a properly articulated thing. And that's just because the cubes, which have to listen to their parents, something I tell my son every day, are just following their rotations. So that's why you get a very simple, otherwise simple concept. And by stacking up more and more of these things, you're creating these quite interesting and complex setups. Now, to wrap this up, I'm going to go and revert to save project. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. But Cinema 4D loves me. So this is the setup I did. I just changed some of the colors. And I added an extra 2 kids. So the top has a little kid, which is right diagonally to the other side. I've just put, it's just a child, nothing else. And as far as the bottom, the bottom here, I've just gone on the opposite and put it here, because the way this is set up, those nulls are going to move with the ends of this setup. So if I want to extend this scissors rig, I'm going to select all these, and this is something you need to take a note. So grab your pencils and your papers and take a note. If you are going to duplicate things that have a lot of dependencies, for example, the IK tag has a dependency on 2 nulls and all that, for some reason, copying and pasting retains all of these dependencies. If you drag copy, sometimes you may lose some of these. So copy and paste. I'm going to bring this all the way down over here. I've created a whole copy of this. And what I'm going to do now is, now I have this hierarchy here. I'm going to move it 100 over, because I know that's the distance, right? I'm cheating here. Now, currently, there is no relationship between this one and the other one. But here's the question. If this is the same, if I tell this person to link to this null, right? Remember that null is up there? And tell this to link to this one, what's going to happen? Well, let's find out. That's how some YouTube videos go. So let's find out. So I'm going to go here and add a constraint tag. And I'm going to constrain this in, I need a transform constraint. And I'm going to tell it to target. So this is the top. I need to go to the cross of the bottom. That's why I named it top driver, although it's a child of the top. I'm going to take it and put it in here. And now I'm going to go to the bottom goal, which is the bottom part of the second X hierarchy. And I'm going to add another rigging constraint tag. And I'm going to say, where does this need to be linked? It needs to be linked to the bottom driver. Of course, a transform to the bottom driver. And what you will see is that if I start moving this, the other one is going to move as well. Now, you are going to see what Jonas just said. If I undo this, you're going to see this lagging. I have to press A on my keyboard. And the reason for that is the way this hierarchy is set, I want this to execute before these. And how do we do that? Well, here's the rule of thumb. Because if you go here to the basic, you will see that this it has an expression priority of 0. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of it, is I'm going to increase these above. I want to tell them, I want you guys to execute later on. And I'm going to show you the naive approach, the sort of the approach you would do when you don't understand exactly what's going on here. So I'm going to say, okay, these are happening after these. I'm just going to make sure that this one is 1 and this one is 1. Okay? Now, not everything has a priority. Expressions do. Now, if I go here and say, let's leave this as it is, and go and move something, let me undo, you see that this seems to have been fixed. Let's get the bottom. It seemed to be fixed. And the reason is that because I elevated, when I say elevated, I increased the number of priority, so I haven't elevated the priority. I've made these two execute later. This bottom, by definition, executes at 0, which means it executes before these. And that's what we're doing here. We're telling this to execute before that. And if you ask me, how did you know, Noseman? How did you know? The reply is very simple. Because when I undid earlier, the one that lagged, so I changed them back to 0. When I undid earlier, which one was the one that lagged? It's this one. Therefore, this one needs sort of some help. And because I don't want to reduce the priority, because I don't want it to execute before these, I leave it as it is and make sure that these ones execute after it. So this is sort of the simple way to go about these kind of things. If you see something that doesn't return to its original position when you undo, the suspicion is that that is lagging. So let's do something to make it execute before the things that don't seem to be lagging. That does not mean that under more complex hierarchies, you won't have to go and change this to one number, this to one number, and so forth. But every single setup will have a different approach depending on what you're doing. Oh, please. So, that's what I have to say. I'm going to pass it on to Jonas here. Ooh, let's go to, where's the host? There he is.
Yeah, that scissor setup is pretty cool. And I also liked that you showed the plane setup that's going up the helix, because that's actually one of the first rigs I ever created inside of Cinema 4D. And I brought up the project here on my screen. I animated a fish, so we had to. That was back in the days at university, like an increasingly depressing time back.
Do you want me to share your screen?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
Reducing.
Yes, please. So I just did the very same that Noseman did, but with a fish. And this is my very first animation that I did inside of Cinema 4D. And as you can see, well, this fish here, this main character fish, is actually just following a spline with the same technique that Asis showed. And yeah, it's working the same way. It's just an align to spline with a hierarchy of nulls. And yeah, this way you can just animate in a very easy way. The rest was just bent deformers, so there was not even a joint rig in there. Great. So the next thing that I want to show you is how you can create, how you can easily create relationships between objects using Xpresso without, well, let's say with just a minimum of touching Xpresso. So let me bring up a little, let me bring up a cogwheel and let's make a copy of it. Like so. And now we want cogwheel 1 to be rotated manually, and we want the other one to follow automatically. And the easiest way to do that is by going to the coordinates. So let's see, which one is it? It's the banking. And then you just right-click this parameter. And by the way, there is a distinction between the R and the B, and also between the P and the XYZ, for example. So if you click the first letter here, you will always use all 3 parameters. And if you click the letter one, you will have the isolated value here. And now we right-click and go to Expressions, Set Driver. And the next thing we need to do is we need to define what should be driven. So we go to cogwheel 1 here, and we just go here, say expressions, and then set driven absolute. Absolute will copy that value in here. Relative is a little bit different. It will, especially if you have different values for the as the starting point. We just use absolute for now. And now you can see that once I rotate this first one, the second one will rotate as well, but it will rotate like in the same direction, and we need to reverse that. And we can simply do that by double-clicking the Xpresso tag. The Xpresso tag needs to be double-clicked to show up what's in there. And here we see the connection. So cogwheel is range mapped. We are using the cogwheel rotation B to drive cogwheel 1's rotation B. And in between there is this range mapper. And here you can see a reverse checkbox. And once I tick that and rotate here again, you can see that it's already working. Now, what if cogwheel 1 here had just half of the teeth, like so? Well, let me move it to the side here, like so. Now you see that the ratio is not correct. So actually, this cogwheel needs to rotate twice as fast as the other one. And we can also set that up in the range mapper. So everything we need to do is we adjust the output upper to the value ×2. And now we should have it. So here you go. That's a simple way to create a relationship between 2 objects. Simply use the set driver, set driven workflow. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is how you can create your own custom interfaces to create something. Let me go back to this buildings scene. And on here, I have a tag with the building controls so that you can set up these controls here. And I want to do that by creating some sort of an atom array. So if you don't know what the atom array is doing, let me just create a new scene. Let me create a cube, and let's throw that into an atom array. And here you go. So whatever has been used as the input will be atomized. So there will be spheres on the points, on the vertices of the cube, and cylinders on the edges. Now let's recreate something like that atom array, but let's also create some more controls. So let's recreate this. Great. First of all, I need a cube, and I'm gonna make the segments 2 by 2 by 2. And then I'm going to create a cylinder, And the cylinder radius should be 2 for now, and we're gonna adjust the height to be 50, like so. You cannot see it right now. So let me just hide the cube. And we're also going to create a sphere with a radius of 2 or 5, so that it's a little bit bigger. And these are our elements that we're going to use to create that rig. And the rig itself is a MoGraph rig. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the sphere and the cylinder both into a cloner. And now I'm going to set up the cloner. First of all, I want the cloner to be in object mode. And we need that object here, like so. And then for the spheres in the sphere cloner, I want to adjust the distribution to vertex because we want these to be cloned onto the vertices. Let me maybe bring up the cube again so that you can see that. And the second one, the cylinders, are supposed to go onto the edges. So now we have this here. And we have a little bit more control already because we have this scale on edge here. And we can make this bigger or smaller. And this is also something I want to add to that rig. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null, and this is my atom array plus, and I'm going to throw in the 2 cloners. Great. So now let's create an interface for that. We can do that on any object or tag, because whenever you have something selected here, there is this menu called user data, and here you can add user data and manage user data. And this is exactly what we want to do. But instead of doing it on the object itself, I'm a big fan of separating these user data parameters out to a tag. And there is a tag for exactly that purpose under programming tags, and it's called user data tag. And the only thing this is here for, is that you can add user data. So it's pretty much an empty tag with some nodes in here, maybe for instructions how you can use the interface later. But the main part happens here. We're going to add some user data. So let's think about stuff we need. First of all, this is the area where we can create controllers for various data types, and we're going to have a look into booleans, floats, and links. And the first one we want to create is a link, because this one is going to allow us to link the cube in there. It's an object link field. So let's call it object. This is the parameter name or object shape. And then we can hit OK. And once we do that, you can see that we now have this object shape in here and a new user data tab, and we can just drag and drop the cube in here. Nothing is happening right now because it's just user data. It's just parameters that have not been linked up with anything else. And we need to do that later. First of all, we want to create the interface. All right, so let me add some more user data. You can also do that in here by hitting the Add Data button. But now let's have a look at what else we need. So first of all, I want to create a slider for the radius of the cylinder. And we're going to do that by typing in radius here. Radius, I cannot type anymore. Sorry for that. So that's our cylinder radius. And the data type is float. Float is any value with decimals that you can think of, both in positive and negative direction. And the interface that we want to use here is a float slider. And the cool thing is that down here you have the preview. So this is what it's going to look like. Now, because it's the float slider for the radius, we need to adjust the unit to length unit. Now it has been changed to centimeters. I want the maximum to be 10 centimeters. We can define that here. I want the step to be lower so that we don't go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that we go in decimal steps of 0.1. And the default value can also be set up here. I want this to be 2. All right, and now we have two options. Either we just hit OK, then we have the radius here, or, and that's what I'm going to do for the next parameters. We're just going to click the Add Data button, so we don't have to click OK every time. Okay, the next thing I want to add is the scale, the edge scale of these cylinders. So let's call this one edge scale, and let's also use float for that. The interface is again going to be a float slider. Unit percent is perfect. Min and max to 0 and 100%. And the default value, let's set it to 50. That's okay. Okay. And then I also want the radius of the sphere. So let's add some more data, or, well, we can do that this way, but we can also just copy, paste, or command or control, click and drag to copy user data. And this is going to be my sphere radius. Length unit is okay. We're going to set the max value here to 20 and the step to 1 in this case, maybe, and the default value to 5. And now you can see that we already have this. We can clean that up a little bit more. So yeah, let's do this a little bit. In order to do that, I want to add categories, and I also want to add booleans that allow me to show or hide the spheres and or the cylinders. So let's add some more user data here. First of all, I want some separators. So I changed the data type to separator. And the first one is called cylinders. And I'm going to place it here. And I can rename the C from the radius. And I'm going to add another separator and call it spheres. Here we go. And I want to get rid of the S here. Great. And the next thing I want to add is checkboxes to enable or disable both of them. So what we're going to do is we add some data, and this is going to be an enable. Sorry for that, enable. The data type for checkboxes is not float, but Boolean. A Boolean is just a yes or no, 0 or 1, true or false. That's what it is. And the default value should be ticked. And we're going to place it here under cylinders. And then we're just going to create a copy of it and place it here. And now if I hit OK, we have an interface that is ready to be linked up. So let's do that. All right, first thing we want to do is we want to use this object shape parameter to drive the overall shape. So I right click here and I say set driver, and then I select both cloners and right click the object parameter and go expressions set driven. And now let's have a look. Let's also create a platonic, for example, and let's make both invisible. If I now drag and drop in the platonic, you can see that we already have the functionality of an atom array pretty much, because both cloners now have a new source object. Okay, now let's do the enable checkboxes. And I'm going to start with the spheres. And I have to start in here. So let's set driver. And in here, we go to the basic tab and go to expressions set driven absolute. And then we do the same with the cylinders, set driver. And those two need to be driven. All right, let's double check if it's working. So now we're going to get rid of the cylinders, and here we're going to get rid of the spheres. So that's perfect, and you can see in the object manager that, yeah, it's working. Great. So the next thing I want to do is linking up the radius of the cylinders. So I'm going to right-click here, set driver, and then in the cylinder, I'm gonna go to object and the radius expressions, set driven absolute. This should work now as well. And now the next thing is the edge scale that I want to set up, set driver, and in here, edge scale, set driven absolute. I'm a little bit fast now, but you get the concept of set driver and set driven. Spheres radius, set driver, and set driven at the radius. Here we go. Okay, and now our interface is already complete. So now we can adjust the radius here. We can adjust the edge scale here. We can adjust the radius of the spheres. We can enable them, disable them. It's all 100% responsive. So if we bring up the counts here, it's gonna respond. And if we're gonna adjust the object, it's also gonna do the correct thing. Great. So that's that. And two more things that I want to show here. So the first thing is that you can always like lock the other object so that the animator or other person that is next in the process cannot touch these if you want that. And you can simply do that by assigning a layer to these. So let's go to the layer manager. And in here, we can hit the plus button and just drag and drop all of these objects onto that layer or the other way around. And then there are two cool options. This one is the lock option. So whenever I hit the lock, you cannot select these objects anymore. And you can also use this one to hide them in the hierarchy. And now I just have this atom array with the user data parameter, and I can adjust everything on here. So also this is part of the rigging process, hiding parameters and setups from the animator or the person that is following next in the process. All right, so I think we have it for today. Oh no, one last thing. I always have one last thing. So if you want to add these objects to the viewport, or these parameters to the viewport, you can do that by selecting them, right-clicking them, and go to Add to HUD. This will add them here. And by default, you can see that there is this thing. And if you just click and drag it, you cannot move it away. You have to hold down the Control key or Command key on the Mac to move this thing around. And you can also move parameters around in here using the same technique. So we can do this, for example, like so, or let's reverse the two and do something like that so that they are next to each other. And then you can place this here. We can also right-click this one and tell it to always show, because right now, if I deselect the tag, the HUD will also disappear. I can define when I want to show it, either when the same is active, the parent is active, the whole chain is active, or always. And I've got a few other options to set this up as well. But for now, I don't want this anymore, so I'm gonna remove it. Great, that's it for today. So I'm gonna bring up my browser again, and I want to make you aware of the upcoming webinars that we are hosting. So the next one is tomorrow, VFX and Chill with Hashi and Seth. And then on Monday, we have the second episode of Demystifying Post-Production Essential Motion Graphics with Lionel Visidomini and myself, and also Dustin Walkema. Then next Wednesday, we have hands-on with Maxon Redshift. So it's a Redshift introduction workshop with Ellie. And next Thursday, we have Max on Color with Max, of course. And he will show you a lot of great tips when it comes to color correction. And yeah, there are a lot more coming up. Great. So if you missed one of the sessions, or if you want to rewatch our session of today, you can always go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. You will find the recording here. And also, a great source for tutorials is cineversity.com. It's Maxon's platform for tutorial content. So definitely check that out as well. Also, last time at Ask the Trainer, we had a deep dive into refractive objects and so on. And Noseman created an even deeper dive into this topic. And you can see that in shape of a tutorial playlist. So definitely check that out. And yeah, then again, we have certification going on. So you can take certification tests. And if you are interested in one of the topics that we have on the certification topics list, if you want to become a certified pro user, then just have a look through the topics here and write the topics that you want to see us discussing to training@maxon.net. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The last thing, pretty much it. The last thing, the Maxon merch store is so the Maxon merch store. Free T-shirts. So we want to give away free T-shirts, and grab one. You can grab one by going to by clicking to that link that Ellie has. By clicking to that link that Ellie has earlier posted earlier. So if you can. So post if you again can be posted cool again, including the coupon code that you need to the coupon code that you log need to so to speak and log in to get the discount of 100%. To get the discount way you don't have to pay for the T-shirt. You don't have to pay for the T-shirt for the shipping. For the shipping. That's it. I think I didn't forget anything. That's it. I think I didn't forget anything. So this was again a great session, Thanasis. This was again a great session. The stuff you showed. I really love the stuff you showed. And
let me just do a switch. Can you do a switch?
Yes.
There we go. I just switched.
Also, thank you a lot for hosting and producing this show today.
It was terrifying. Yeah.
Next time will be better.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not going to volunteer again, and immediately it becomes better. Don't worry. I promise, because I think we add some fun with these little glitches. That's how families are. We discuss these things, we have our interventions, and then we fix them. So what I'd like to request from everyone is, I see some specific questions by Wes and other people, Zabrands and so forth. Tag me on Twitter and ask these questions, because we do need input from you as far as these topics when you need specific things, so that we know in which direction we can take these things and maybe make some setups and provide some solutions, or even make tutorials. As far as the previous week's subject about dielectrics, very soon, I think next week, we're going to have the second batch where it will show how to set up the scene for proper dielectrics after the modeling, and how to create condensation. And soon after that, a couple of weeks after that, another video on how to create droplets and bubbles and stuff like that. So by the end, and I think I'm going to throw you under the bus, Jonas. You need to do something about your ice cube tutorial, because everyone loved it. And over the next few months, you're going to see a more complete series on making beverages and with all the paraphernalia and all that.
Great.
So, yeah, just tag me on Twitter at NosemanGR if you want to see all my other links, my YouTube videos and all that, free of course. Go to noseman.org and click on the appropriate links. And generally, if you have questions, it's a very good thing to just contact the Maxon training team, either by email or Twitter or something like that, so that we know which direction we're going to go, and essentially, at the end of the day, we can provide some solutions on that. So that's all I have to say.
Cool. So I just learned that you can hear my audio twice. But that doesn't matter for now because I'm going to wrap up anyway. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Noseman, for producing and for showing the cool setups. And also, thank you, Ellie, for having a look at the chat.
No
and
worries.
also Darren. And see you guys next time.
Yeah, and thank you, both of you, Jonas. Yeah.
No problem. No problem. No problem.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.